Hi everyone. I spotted this drawing someone on Twitter posted, someone who I think goes by the name FeedbackSyxx. I hope I'm saying that right. And I see a lot of potential here, both in the illustration and in the artists themselves. So I asked their permission to make a quick feedback video with some suggested edits, and they said yes. So here I go. This is unscripted, and it is 3:30 a.m. where I am. So my apologies if I start to ramble and get a bit incoherent. I'll try to keep that in check as best I can. So anyway, let me just dive right into the first big anatomical thing to keep in mind, and that's when you're drawing a muscle-bound superhero or someone very athletic, someone very fit. When you're drawing their chest, always keep in mind in regard to the rib cage and the abs, keep in mind what they're doing and what the perspective is. Are they leaning forward or are they leaning back? And so if someone is leaning back, I'll do it in a slightly 3/4 angle so it's more obvious, so it's easier to tell what I'm talking about. So here's the pectoralis muscles, pecs, and then there's the underside of the rib cage. When they're leaning back, that's when you're really going to see the strong demarcation of the underside of the rib carriage here, the rib cage. All right, and then you have the serratus anterior muscles, I think they're called, and you'll have something like this. All right. All right, but in this case, the case of this drawing, because we can see the collarbones so much, and the back of the neck is up here, that means they're leaning forward quite a bit. So if they're leaning forward, then you're not going to see the delineation of the underside of the rib cage like this, so pronounced, and you're especially not going to see the abs as a very small sort of inset that's like worried of occupying the same space as the rib cage. It does occupy the same space as the rib cage. They start up under the pecs, they go over the rib cage. So keep that in mind. They're not just some little set, you know, the quote-unquote six-pack is not just this little thing that's inset and kind of avoiding the edges of the rib cage. So let me just draw this in. For some reason also this pec is a little shorter than this one, so something more like this. And then what you're going to see is the first very thin row of muscles of the abs, and then you're going to see something like this, and that, and something like this, and then the serratus. So it's going to look more like this, and then this deltoid would be more pronounced, you know, especially for a superhero. You want them to be almost, you know, well, superhuman. You want them to be extremely fit, and so a shadow under there, make that deltoid more pronounced. Oops, make that eraser smaller. Something more like that, and then you had a nice indication there of the sort of indent because you have these muscles going like this, and something about like that. But anyway, that's about right now. And then another thing that's really important, the jaw of a masculine superhero is very important, and it doesn't matter if they're looking up or down. You can't just have the delineation of the jaw disappear, especially it's not like the character's looking up that much. So there's also a problem with this bicep here. You're starting to peak far too high up under the deltoid, and then something like that, and then this thumb is a little bit wonky there. Delineate that more, that's fine. All right, so I forgot I don't have touch set up on this right now. All right, so one, you're definitely going to want to see, if someone's looking up this much, you're going to want to see a shadow cast under the nose, or some delineation of what's going on with the nose. And then especially the jaw would be something like this. And then the muscles. This makes it look saggy. I don't know what this is. This is not appropriate anatomy there, so I would leave that out. And then let's see. So make sure you have a jawline under there, and then because the head is looking up, the ears would be quite low, which I think you have. And then careful, this head's got a little crooked, a little lopsided. So definitely use that trick of flipping the image horizontally repeatedly while you work. Flip it one way, work on it that way, flip it the other. It really helps you see issues where you made things kind of slanting one way or the other. And speaking of slanting one way or the other, this arm here is sort of fighting itself between the bend of the wrist and the fist with the angle of the arm. Let's see if I can get my arm on camera. So if I'm doing like a power thing, almost always the forearm is going to be going upward to some degree, and you currently have the wrist going in a kind of feeble looking, saggy kind of angle. You want something more like a curl, or a when someone's like flexing their biceps or something like that. So I won't spend a lot of time on this, but just to get the point across, should be something more like this. And then do the fingers accordingly based on that angle. Like I said, I won't spend too much time in it, but I think you get the idea. Make sure you don't have angles that are fighting each other. Another thing I wanted to mention is, and this is especially true, I do a lot of pixel art and sprite work, and it's very true for that, but it's also true for high-res drawings for print and things like that. When you have some element or aspect of a character's design or costume, draw it for all it's worth as far as making it sort of stand out on the character. And this is something that for a lot of more entry-level artists, this is a very common problem. This is especially true here in the wrapping covering the legs. Make sure you take your time, especially for the inked version, that the outline is broken and somewhat three-dimensional. It can be subtle, but you should have definitive actual dimension. It should be, you know, this is something wrapped over something. So you have the original spandex or the boots and then something on top. So make it take that space, and it'll make a massive difference to the overall quality, and it'll give the character more character. And this is especially true in the case of this design with this belt or sash or whatever we're going to call it. You can see like there's almost no three-dimensional space area. You've got a lot of lines for wrinkles, but it's just sort of pretty much shrink wrapped to the body. You could have definitely gone a lot farther with making it, you know, just really getting. You need less lines. A lot of lines is nowhere near as good as fewer lines that are really there for a very specific reason. So something like that, and then give this a little more three-dimensionality, and then you know, you can do that the way you did, which was pretty nice. Very nice attention to detail here, but again, if you're going to have those sort of details, you might as well really play it up and make it a little more exciting, a little more pizzazz. And then the last most important thing for this, or the last important thing for this, is be careful with what's going on in the groin. You can end up very quickly with what almost feels like a saggy diaper kind of effect. Let me zoom back out here. And it's even a little, it's better now with the way I drew the abs, but it's a little off center, and it's a little, it has a little bit of a saggy diaper feel. I know it's weird, you know, in most American comics, they basically don't give the male characters any junk at all, but you can find a happy medium, I think, and, oops. Something like that. And then the muscle on top would be more emphasized in this particular position. You've got the kneecap. And don't forget, again, give some actual thickness to these sort of wrappings. Let's see. That's all the really important stuff. I hope that makes sense. And in general, like I said, I'm just going to flatten this so I can easily flip it. Where is it? Rotate canvas, flip horizontally. There we go. So yeah, looking at this now, flip the other way. I don't know if you were doing this while you were working on it, but I hope you can see how much easier it is to see issues, and especially like when things are sort of skewed or slanting one way. So looking at this now, like there's a real issue with this part of the body. Needs to be further back. So I'm going to do this really rough, but something like that looks a lot better. So I'm just really doing this in a very hacky way now, but all right, so I hope you can see how flipping it can help you see better what's wrong with the drawing. This leg, really feels like it's coming out in a slightly wonky angle, and the upper leg, the upper thigh part, is not quite long enough. So you can quickly grab this, move it down a bit, and then maybe even skew it, rotate it a bit, to give the character a more stable footing. Something along these lines. Zoom back out. Fit on screen, there we go. And that's about it that's about all the feedback I'm going to give for this one. I hope that makes sense. Pay careful attention of what's going on with the rib cage. Watch out for the groin region, and make sure you're flipping back and forth a lot to make sure that if things, we all have a bias toward slanting things, and we can't even see it until we flip it the other way, and then it becomes really obvious to us. So make sure when you're doing a drawing, even if you're doing a drawing on actual paper, you can hold it up to a mirror, you can hold it up in reverse to a light source or a window and see it backwards. Another trick is to actually do your initial layouts for a drawing on tracing paper and just draw it on one side, flip it over, and then edit your drawing on the other, and then you could use another sheet of tracing paper and just put it right on top and then trace it, making further improvements, and just keep doing that until no matter which way you look at it, you don't see any issues. But anyway, that's it. I'm starting to ramble. That's the important feedback I had. I hope this was helpful. And thanks for watching, and thanks anyone else who ends up watching.